always here, no fear.
Oh, what a glorious thing to be a healthy, grown-up, busy, busy bee, whiling away the passing hours, pinching all the pollen from the cold leaf flowers. I'd like to be a busy, busy bee, being just as busy as a bee can be, flying round the garden, the streets never seen, taking back the honey to the dear old queen. Buzz, 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 honeybee, honeybee, buzz, if you like, but don't sting me. Buzz, 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 honeybee, honeybee, buzz, if you like, but don't sting me.
Hello, my name's Sarah. I'm a beekeeper. And I was asked to have a chat with the Devon radio station as to why I started beekeeping and why I like it, etc. Basically, I've always been really into nature. Always had animals around me. I love birds and bees and everything. It's always fascinated me how they work as an entire community. Work as like one entity, and when I said I wanted to do beekeeping in my early 40s to my husband, he freaked out and went, okay, before you start another crazy hobby, I need you to have a look at the South Devon Moulton Honeybee Farm, South Moulton Honeybee Farm. And so we took a trip down to South Moulton and we went to the honeybee farm there. And it was absolutely fascinating. And then the next stage, before I spent loads of money on equipment, was I joined the Torbay Beekeeping Association, and I did the winter training course there. And I absolutely recommend everyone to go to the winter training course. Just you do everything theory, but it's so interesting. I don't think anybody realised the complexity of bees and how they work, and it's just fascinating. And the more I learned about them, the more that I really wanted to keep them. My first year beekeeping, I was looking for bee equipment, second-hand bee equipment, and there was a gentleman called Kingsley in Denbury. Unfortunately, he's passed away now, but he was one of the presidents of the Torbay Beekeeping Association. And he went, oh, come on down, I've got loads of stuff in my shed if you want to have a look. I popped on down and he said to me, oh, well, I've got a box of bees if you want to come back later. And I went, oh, okay. Thinking he meant like a little nuke, so you can get them in little nucleuses, which are like sort of 6 or 7 frames. And the queen's in there and they're quite light. And he went, you better bring your husband, she might not be able to lift it. And I thought, blooming cheek, do you know what I mean? I'm not that weak. I might be a woman. I thought he was taking the mickey. And I said to Toby, "Oh, come on down. We're going to pick up a box of bees." And luckily I chucked a couple of bee suits in the car just in case Toby had to get close to bees, because he doesn't actually like beekeeping, particularly bees. He likes them, but from a distance. We got down there late in the evening when the bees had all gone into their hive, and it turns out there was a hive on the floor. Actually, it had fallen over, and it was that was the hive I was having. It wasn't a box, it was a hive. So I went, oh, okay. We drove the car into the field and we tried to get this whole hive. It had a floor, a brood chamber and a super on top of it, but we couldn't get the whole thing on in my car. So we had to, we couldn't put the roof on. So Kings is like, yeah, don't worry about it. All he's got is a veil on. He's not wearing any protection, any gloves, anything. And we're like fully kitted up in all our beekeeping suits. And he went, oh, don't worry about it, it'll be fine. The bees will stay in the hive. And I'm like, there isn't a lid on it. And he's like, that's fine. So as it happened, I happened to have a sheet in the back of my car. So I put it over the top of the hive. And we put the roof next to it. And it was a wing and a prayer all the way to one of my little sites just around the corner. But I was driving so slowly. I've never driven so slowly in my life. I had the hazard warning lights on the whole way. And we had to go. I tried to pick a route where there was no speed bumps and there was no sharp corners, because I'm like, my husband's freaking out because he doesn't really want to be that close to bees. And we've got a box of bees in the back of our car, a hive of bees in the back of my car, which are buzzing away quite nicely. But it's, when you're driving, they go quite quiet, and it's quite nice because they sort of, I think they bundle up round the queen and they just go quiet when they're moving. But as soon as you stop, the hive comes to life again and starts whirring. That's all I can describe it as. So we get to this little village in the dark, about 10 o'clock at night by now. And I said to my husband, "You're going to have to help me get it out." He wasn't happy. I'm going to be honest. I think he was very brave. That was his first attempt at moving bees with me. So we lifted this hive out into an area on the road, because where my site was, there's no car access. So we lifted the hive out. We kept the sheet actually on top of the hive, so the bees didn't come flying out. And Kingsley had blocked up the front of the hive with loads of grass, so they couldn't come out the front. And we put the lid on there and then, and I strapped it up because I had a strap on me, because I was thinking I was going to take a little nuke box home with me, not a hive. So I strapped it up and we went and took it to the land. And bearing in mind, my husband had never ever been down there, so he didn't. It's really uneven. There's cobbles all the way to the land, and I'm quite short and he's quite tall, so it was a bit of a bumpy ride for the bees. And they're getting more and more. He's going, "They're getting a bit annoyed, sir." And yeah, they were getting pretty annoyed. But it's okay because they couldn't get out. And so we got to the land and I just put it in the position where I thought I was going to keep them. And we walked away. The next morning, very, very early, I got up and I went down to this site and to take the sheet off, really, and to let the bees out. But bearing in mind, this is my first sort of introduction with bees. I hadn't really been there. I've been sort of open beehives down at Torbay Beekeeping Association, but you're observing, looking, and I wasn't really anticipating a full box of bees in midsummer. And I thought, I better put my suit on just in case. And I took the grass out the front entrance and they came out like a rattlesnake. And I have to say, at that point I thought, oh my God, what have I got myself into? I left them and they were cool, and by the weekend obviously was when I was going to do a hive inspection and look through it and take the sheet off, and because it didn't matter that the sheet was on underneath the roof, that was fine. So they could still fly in and out the entrance, because the entrance had been, I'd taken the grass out the entrance. My first hive inspection and take the sheet off, I have to say, I opened the hive, smoked the hive, had all my gear on, my welly boots, my suit. It was a really hot day, went down at lunchtime. I smoked the front of the hive. I took the lid off, and I smoked the top again. I took the sheet off, and I must admit, I tried to start going through the frames, and I had a bit of a panic. I thought, oh my God, what have I got myself into? I'm on my own down here. The hive was stacked full of honeybees, and I was a little bit overwhelmed. And I remember, I think I took about 3 frames out, and I tried to inspect them, and the fear got the better of me, and I smoked them back down, and I put the frames back in, and I thought, okay, take a deep breath, come back another day. And I closed it back up, because my actual purpose of going in that day was really to remove the sheets and just check them they were okay. But I don't think I got past 3 frames at that point.
Has the grown-up busy bee, whiling away the passing hours, pinching all the pollen from the cold leaf flowers. I'd like to be a busy bee, being just as busy as a bee can be, flying round the garden, streets never seen, taking back the honey to the dear old queen. Buzz, 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 honeybee, buzz, if you like, but don't sting me. Buzz, 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 honeybee, buzz, if you like, but don't sting me.
Hope is all you need. Hope is always here.